Alright, today we'll be talking about naming ionic compounds. Remember, ionic compounds are compounds that contain a metal from the left-hand side of the periodic table and a non-metal from the right-hand side of the periodic table. Binary ionic compounds, where the prefix bi means made up of only two atoms, and we know made up of a metal and a non-metal. We always name our cation first. That's our metal with a positive charge. And then our anion gets named second, our non-metal. All we do when we name binary ionic compounds is change the ending of the non-metal to "ide", I-D-E. So for example, chlorine becomes chloride, and fluorine becomes fluoride, and oxygen, oxide. So NaCl would be named sodium chloride. MgBr2 would be named magnesium bromide. Na2S would be named sodium sulfide. K3P would be named potassium phosphide. Now when we write the formulas for ionic binary compounds, we balance the charges by the crisscross method. Remember, our charges are the pink post-its up on the periodic table, the +1, the +2, the -1, the -2. So for example, if we were naming aluminum and sulfur, aluminum has a charge of +3 because it's our metal, and sulfur has a charge of -2. So if we crisscross the charges and bring them down, our formula would become aluminum 2 sulfide 3. Here's another example. Lithium has a charge of +1, chlorine has a charge of -1. If we crisscross those charges and bring them down, and since they're the same, we can drop the ones and just leave it with lithium chloride. One more example. Beryllium has a charge of +2, sulfide has a charge of -2. We crisscross the charges, and because they are the same, we can drop those as well. So here's a learning checkpoint. If we were bonding Li and F together, lithium has a charge of +1, fluorine has a charge of -1, so if we crisscross the ones and bring them down, it just becomes lithium fluoride. Calcium and oxygen. Calcium has a charge of +2, oxygen has a charge of -2. If we crisscross those charges and bring them down, we can drop the 2's and just leave them at 1 each. Next up, aluminum and fluoride. Aluminum has a charge of +3, fluorine has a charge of -1. If we crisscross them, it becomes aluminum F3. Alright, let's take a look at our homework assignment. For the top portion, it wants us to look at the name and break it apart into the metal ion and the non-metal ion and what the formula for the compound would be. So sodium chloride, the metal is sodium with a charge of +1, and our non-metal is chlorine with a charge of -1. So if we crisscross the charges, our formula would just be sodium chloride. For the next one, barium iodide. Barium has a charge of +2, and iodine has a charge of -1. So if we were to crisscross those charges, our answer would become barium iodine and 2 iodines once we crisscross those charges. For the second part of your homework assignment, you were to look at the individual atoms and name the compound. So magnesium and chlorine becomes magnesium chloride. Strontium and chlorine become strontium chloride. Aluminum and iodine become aluminum iodide. And one more, potassium and bromine become potassium bromide. Now go ahead and see how many you can do on your own. Remember, I have a key up at my desk whenever you need to check.